Introduce our keynote speaker, Dr. Robert Bobby Robbins. I guess Bobby is what you prefer to go by. Bobby is the President and Chief Executive Officer of the Texas Medical Center since November of last year, filling some pretty big shoes from Dr. Richard Winardi that we are all familiar with. Dr. Winardi is a legend around here, so we know you've got a challenge on your hands to step into that role. Prior to joining the Texas Medical Center, Dr. Robbins was a professor and chairman of the Department of Cardiothoracic Surgery at Stanford University and director of the Stanford Cardiovascular Institute. He also directed Stanford's heart, lung, and lung transplantation programs, as well as its cardiothoracic transplantation laboratory. Dr. Robbins earned a bachelor's degree from Millsaps College in Jackson, Mississippi, and a MD from the University of Mississippi Medical Center, where he completed his general surgery residency and internship, and he completed a cardiothoracic surgery residency at Stanford in 1992, where he was the chief resident. Afterward, he completed some postdoctoral work, fellowships in pediatric congenital heart surgery at Emory University in Atlanta, and at the Royal Children's Hospital in Melbourne, Australia. He's absolutely been around, and if that was not enough, along the way he spent 2 years as a clinical associate at the National Institutes of Health and 6 months as a postdoctoral fellow in cardiothoracic transplantation at Columbia Presbyterian Medical Center in New York. He is truly recognized as one of the world's most respected cardiothoracic surgeons. Bottom line is, if you're getting your chest cracked to have your heart transplanted, you want him involved in it, okay? His key research interests lie in stem cell therapy for the treatment of congestive heart failure, genetic determinants of disease, personalized medicine in which treatments are tailored to each patient's genetic profile, as well as regenerative medicine in which blood vessels are actually engineered and grown. Really some interesting work that he's been involved with throughout his career today. He and his wife Debbie have 2 sons. One is at Ole Miss and the other is at Dartmouth. And we really welcome you to Houston, Texas. I know you've been in a lot of places, and this is rodeo week, so you're seeing a little bit of what Houston's about. But without any further adu, let's welcome Dr. Bobby Robbins.
I came here in November to take over for Dr. Winardi, who, when people tell me I have big shoes to fill, this is Texas, big boots to fill, and those are huge boots. It's like following John Wooden at UCLA. Just a tremendous individual, great vision. He's an engineer, but I'm sure any of you who did any drawings for you, he probably edited those for you and gave you a few suggestions on your drawings. So, and you could all be over to rodeo. I started the morning over in another room in Teresio with a press conference with the mayor, and we announced that Houston is going to be the permanent site starting in 2014 for the largest medical trade show in the world. It takes place in several different locations. So in Dusseldorf, Germany is where the event started, and they've got a couple of sites around the world, but they had no site in North America or in South America. So after 3 years of sort of negotiation and trying to decide on a site, it's like getting the Olympics, but permanently. They chose Houston, and I think for good reason. One of the reasons I'm here is because of this medical center. Not only the medical center, but Houston and Texas in general, because I think of all places in the country, this is really a great and exciting place to be. Not the least of which is the economy. I was out doing some focus group work out in the crowd earlier. I can't believe all of you that were out there got into these seats. That's pretty amazing. But I asked, what is it people really want to hear about? And, the resounding response was, we just want you to tell us that everything is going to start booming and you're going to be building a lot of buildings. So at this point, I would invite you to go back to the bar and get a drink. But as you think about it, the future, I mean, I don't, as I said, don't know much about architecture, but I do watch higher education, and my sense is that schools of architecture are not as popular as maybe they were one time. But look at these young students and the great work that they're doing. I think that's optimistic for the future, that they believe that, number one, it's a valued profession, but that there's going to be a lot of work to do, or they wouldn't be doing this. So congratulations to all of you who participated, and you'll have to walk me through your presentations after this. So what I'm going to talk about tonight is healthcare delivery. Greg started giving my talk, and I kind of thought, well, maybe your face may be too blue from hearing about the Affordable Care Act. We'll touch on some of that, but I think I want to start with just what my vision is for the medical center. It is the world's largest medical center. Many of you in the audience designed and helped to build this medical center, so you should all be proud and thank you for what you did, because you know, as Barbara Bush says, this is Houston's gift to the world, and it's really true. Now, I was up in Austin on Tuesday and spent a little over an hour chatting with the governor. And one of the first things he said was, I got in some real trouble because I said in one of my speeches that the Texas Medical Center is the world's largest medical center with more doctors, and more scientists, and more researchers than any place in the world. Well, of all the things that he said, of course, the fact checkers, Politico.com, went after him on that, and they said, how can you prove that? What are the factual data? And he turned to me and said, you got to give me some help on that. So I came home and I looked it up, and in fact, it is the truth. It's right in Wikipedia. So I thought I could print that back to them and see how they like that. Of course, Reed wrote it. You know. So I think that it is, you know, in all seriousness, it is the largest, the mayor said it well today, the largest collection of health care institutions in one campus in the world. There's no question about that. There are nearly 100,000 employees, almost 40,000 students, trainees, residents, and fellows. So it is a remarkable place, no question about that. I think the future is bright. I would not have left a tenured faculty position in beautiful Palo Alto to come to Houston if I didn't think the future was bright. So I'm an optimist. It's good to be a Texan. Even though I grew up in Mississippi, and as my friends tell me, I'll never be a Texan, but that's sort of an extension of East Texas over there in Mississippi, so it's okay. And I was at the rodeo on Monday night for opening night. We spent time with the Ukrainian delegation most of the day, and then went to the rodeo and was sitting there in the opening ceremony. They were riding horses out, and then the wagon started to come out, and they announced the Ukrainian delegation was in a wagon. So I watched them as they went around, and you know, it was truly their first rodeo. They said they have horses there in Ukraine, but no rodeos. And so they come out of the end zone, if you will, and they made it all the way around to the other end zone, and I've never seen this before. The wagon just stopped. Was anybody there? Did you see this? Nobody was there. So they stopped, and then the horses just started rearing up, and then, you know, all the cowboys rode their horses over there and grabbed them, trying to, and long and short of it is, the Ukrainians had to get out and walk back to the other end. So fast forward to the next day, I was sitting out waiting for the governor. All of a sudden the door opens, here come the Ukrainians. They'd been in there, so it was kind of fun to see them, and they had fun at the rodeo, but they didn't have fun when the horses started bucking. That kind of freaked them out. So looking forward, I think there are several things. The charge that I got from my board when I was hired to do this job was to, and you probably heard this a lot and wondered why it hasn't been done. I'm not suggesting I'm the person to do it, but I certainly took the challenge. Is of all of these institutions, there are 54 institutions that make up the Texas Medical Center. There are many large ones that are internationally famous, MD Anderson, Texas Heart Institute, Texas Children's, Methodist Hospital, Baylor College of Medicine. There, you know, all the familiar names, and there's smaller ones, the blood bank, the hospice, Ronald McDonald House. Those are actually institutions. That's how we get to 54. Actually, UTMB in Galveston is officially part of the Texas Medical Center. We're glad to have them. But as I look across these institutions, the thing that made them great was competition. The outside world, of course, knows the famous stories of the wars between Dr. Cooley and Dr. Bakey and the divorce between Methodist Hospital and Baylor College of Medicine. So at the outset, it doesn't seem that there's a lot of cooperation and collaboration, but there is. There are many examples of that. My job is to help foster more collaboration and cooperation. Think of it this way. Think about Major League Baseball and the Astros, who are moving to the American League, which is a little strange, and they're going to be in the American League West, so they'll be playing the Angels and the Oakland A's. So if you think about it, they compete on the field. I guess the rivalry with the St. Louis Cardinals will go away, but they'll form new rivalries with the American League West teams. And on the field, they're very competitive. Probably the most competitive event is a Yankees-Red Sox game. So they hate each other and they compete on the field. Behind the scenes, however, they work together very well. All the teams work together through the Office of Major League Baseball. They work together on player union issues. They work together on TV rights. They work together on branding and marketing. And they really are very tight because their competition is really not each other. Their competition is the NFL, the NBA, NASCAR. So they have to bind together. And that's the way I look at our institutions. It's nice to have an on-field competition, but we need to find a way for all of the institutions to work together toward common goods. So my job is to try to figure out where are some of those intersections. I think that on the clinical side, I think it's good to have robust competition, but even my friends in the heart transplant business, there are 3 programs now. There's one at Methodist, there's one at St. Luke's Texas Heart Institute, and there's one new one at Herman. They've come to me and said, we really would like to come together and make it one program. It would be the largest transplant program in the world by far. You know, the St. Luke's and Texas Heart and Methodist are close to being, they're certainly 2 of the top 5, but you put those together and it's a tremendous resource. And it's, you know, there's an economy of scale there. And I think for the betterment of the patients, for protocols, for things like that, I think that would be a good thing. I'm not going to dive into that immediately because I think that I'm going to focus more on educational opportunities and research opportunities. And there are 5 different areas that I've chosen, at least coming in, to do a means test on how that might play here and look to see if there are some commonalities. The first would be around clinical trials. So in order to get a device approved by the FDA or a new drug, you have to test it in humans, and those are called clinical trials. And those are done in hospitals with patients. And there are more clinical trials done here, because it is, according to Wikipedia, the largest medical center in the world. So there are more clinical trials done here than any one site in the world. Each of the institution is doing their own thing. They have regulatory requirements and things that allow them to do their clinical trials. So we'll be looking at, is there some common infrastructure, some economies of scale that we could use to bring those clinical trials together. I would say Duke is the leading institution in this regard. They have what's called the Duke Clinical Research Institute, which really coordinates clinical trials all over the world, not just at Duke. So we'll be looking at possible options to bring a core infrastructure together to carry out the clinical trials that are so important with the new discoveries and moving drugs and devices into everyday care of patients. The next area is regenerative medicine. I didn't come with the idea that that would be one of the areas, but after going around and listening a lot to the CEOs and the leaders in the medical center, I believe, you know, I was biased coming in because that's where a lot of my research has been, is in stem cells for cardiovascular disease. But I think that is a ripe opportunity. There's a lot of interest in stem cells across all domains. You know, cancer and cardiovascular disease are the 2 largest killers in the United States. So clearly there's opportunity there, and leveraging on the great strengths of the medical center with MD Anderson and Texas Heart Institute and the other institutions that I mentioned, I think regenerative medicine is going to be a big field for us to focus on. And again, there's not I would say that Boston and Stanford and LA are really the leading places for regenerative medicine and stem cell research. So I think that the Texas Medical Center has a great opportunity to be right in there as one of the leaders. But it's going to require, because all the programs are fairly nascent at this point, and I think by bringing these institutions together and these programs together, I think that'll be the greatest chance of success and to get to that premier position the fastest. When you think about stem cells, there are, I'll just digress for 1 second. This is not about healthcare delivery, but I'll give you a little quick vignette on stem cells. There are really two kinds of cells that can be used for stem cell therapies. One is an adult cell. That's a cell in your body that makes up all your organs that are really mature cells, and they don't really reproduce themselves. The other are embryonic stem cells, and there's a lot of controversy and moral and ethical issues around embryonic stem cell research. But those cells are able to differentiate and become any cell in your body. It's always very interesting to know how embryonic stem cell A decides to become a brain cell, and embryonic stem cell B, which looks just like it, decides to become a heart cell. So there's been a lot of work and research and fundamental discovery around that to learn what the genes are and the proteins that are responsible for cell A becoming a brain cell and cell B becoming a heart cell. I think one of my collaborators over the years has been a guy named Yamanaka. And this year he won the Nobel Prize for stem cell research for the following discovery. He discovered that you could take a skin cell called a fibroblast, which is an adult stem cell, and you can add 4 genes to that cell, and it reverts back to an embryonic state, meaning that it's pluripotent, IPS, inducible pluripotent stem cell. It was induced to become a pluripotent cell, meaning it can turn into any cell in your body. So that was obviously a big deal, and we've been working with Yamanaka for years, looking at mechanisms of how to actually differentiate these cells into cardiac cells and use them to repair the heart. So those are the two kind of different cells, either an adult mature cell or a pluripotent cell. I think that the introduction of inducible pluripotent cells will take away all the issues related to the morals and the ethics of using embryonic stem cells. Moreover, it has an advantage, because if you use them for the patient's own therapies, then they won't be rejected. If you use embryonic stem cells, the immunology of those cells, they express antigens or proteins that your immune cells note is foreign, and they'll kill the cells, so they'll get rejected. So I think that's a big discovery, and I think that there's a vast opportunity to bring together all of the researchers in the Texas Medical Center to focus in this area, whether it be for repairing damaged heart after a heart attack, whether it be treating Parkinson's disease, diabetes. If you could just put a stem cell in and have it differentiate toward a pancreatic cell that produces insulin, that's the way you can treat diabetes. So I'm very excited that that the leadership here thinks that this is one of the future things for the Texas Medical Center. The other area is around innovation. So the true innovation, and you guys know this, especially the engineers know, that innovation really is a wide spectrum of how do you get an idea from the back of the napkin to sitting around getting your idea actually commercialized so that it can get into the hands of physicians and healthcare professionals to improve the health of patients. That's a long process. It's traditionally thought that you had to be born an inventor, an entrepreneur. But there's actually a process. Paul Yock at Stanford has a book now that captured 10 years worth of proving this concept that it's actually a teachable art, that you can actually have a bio-design for developing new medical devices that's very teachable. And the way it works is, the bio-design at Stanford is you get a team of 4, an engineer usually, someone from the business school, usually a basic scientist, and then usually a clinician, a surgeon. And they work together like business school teams, and they go out into the clinic for about 6 months, and they look at a problem. They're usually directed around either orthopedics or cardiac or cancer, or whatever the domain is that they're working on for that particular year. And they do a needs assessment in the hospital. They come back with a list of hundreds of things that they can look for that can improve the care of patients. It could be a device, it could be an IT solution, it could be many things. And then they come back and they go through a process of finally getting a final design, a prototype and a final design that then could be potentially commercialized. So in that process of innovation, there's really crystallizing your idea, developing it, making sure you don't tell anybody, you write it down in a book and don't disclose it to anybody, because you want to protect your intellectual property. And that's most people don't know how to read a patent. You have to turn to the end and look at the claims of the patent, but they certainly don't know how to write one. So a true innovation center would have expertise guiding someone around their idea and how to protect that idea through intellectual property. The second thing is, how do you actually write a business plan? Because if you're going to commercialize this, in most academic institutions, well, all academic institutions, they're not in the business of true innovation because they can't commercialize anything. They can't make medical devices. They don't have marketing and sales teams. They don't have manufacturing facilities to be able to do that. So there's got to be a partnership between the inventor, usually embedded in a medical school or a university, and partnering with commercial interests to be able to commercialize a great idea. So you need to be instructed on how to write a business plan and do a market analysis and competitive analysis to know, even though it's patented, would it be a good idea that could get commercialization? Then, I mentioned this in the clinical trials platform, there's the FDA, and most inventors have no idea about how to get through the regulatory requirements of the FDA. So that would be an important component. And then you have to get money. So we would have to have the expertise to guide these individuals to get their idea through the FDA, through the IP process, and then get capitalization so that the company could then be started. One of the things that I found, and I've spent a lot of time in the last 3 months looking at the ecosystem of Houston around innovation, particularly the life sciences. And there's some activity here. There's a center called the Houston Technology Center that's very good. It's about 60% energy and 40% life sciences. And they do a great job of what's called incubating or accelerating ideas. If you have an idea and you're kind of struggling through that process I just described for you, you could go to the Houston Technology Center and they could help you get to the point of getting funding and getting your idea commercialized. So I think that's a great opportunity for the Texas Medical Center, the world's largest medical center, to be able to get these ideas out to the market. What happens today is you get great ideas and the venture capitalists will come from California and say, that's a great idea, we're going to take it to California or we're going to take it to Boston. We need to claim that space and keep those ideas here. There's a program, you can go Google a program, all of the students should do this. Go Google a program called StartX. It was a grassroots effort led by undergraduates at Stanford University to start their own incubator accelerator. And it's a phenomenal program. And I would say, now I'm going to say something practical for at least the architects in the room. One of the things is it's great to have wayfinding, and wayfinding is a wonderful thing. But one of the groups, in the first group of the StartX initiative, was a device that would do wayfinding on a smartphone or an iPad, and it would do it without using GPS. So think about going into MD Anderson and trying to find your doctor's office. That's a big task. However, if you had this app and the building was constructed so that there was a signal, and I don't know all the technology, but I do get this point, that there was a signal that's not based on satellites, but it was specific to the building that would help you with wayfinding. You could just be walking down the hall. That's what a lot of us do anyway. We're on our email and we bump into people. Texting in the car is bad. Also walking, looking, and texting is not very good. But those are the kind of, I think, creative solutions that as you're designing buildings, you should think about. I'm certain in the future this is going to be the way we get around large complexes. Even the medical center. You know, if you try to put in a map and say, I'm going from Treviso to some office in Methodist, you know, that takes a little while, but if you had an app to do that, you could do it. So that's an example of technology and innovation that not all life sciences in care of hospital are applicable to care of hospitals have to be a medical device or a drug. It could be a diagnostic, but I think more and more we're going to leverage technology in the form of information technology and electronic solutions to help us take better care of patients. So the fourth area is genomics. So the human genome took 10 years and $10 billion. 10 years and $10 billion to get the genetic map of one person. 10 years, $10 billion. Today, it takes about 48 hours and $1,000. Within the next 5 years, it'll be a 4-hour blood test you get when you go to the doctor. It'll cost about $50. And the health system, probably the government, will pay you to get that test because they wanted to use that genetic information to take better care of you and deliver health. There were 2 places that were responsible for sequencing, figuring out the genetic code. One was Craig Venter's operation, which is a private operation in the Washington, D.C. area. The other was Baylor College of Medicine, the Genomics Center here. Rick Gibbs and Art Baudet, Tom Caskey, they were really pioneers and got got part of the mapping of the human genome. My prediction is that everybody in this room within the next 10 years will have your genomic map on your iPhone. It'll be right there. You have 6 billion base pairs in your body. 6 billion base pairs. For all of you who studied biochemistry, that's A to T and G to C. There's 6 billion of those connections through your body. All that data can be digitalized eventually. And then I think one of the big things going forward in healthcare, just the same as it is in the energy sector, and it is in big business, and that's the management of big data. And they're going to need to be supercomputing, different algorithms. There's a company that the chair of the Department of Mathematics, who happened to be one of my neighbors on the campus there, just started, that uses topographical assessment of data, large amounts of data, and to be able to distill it down, to be able to decipher specific questions that you're asking about it. Even the Watson, it's about 30 times faster than Watson could do it. I can't tell you exactly how it works. I just know it's cool, and it's going to be one of the things that are going to be used to manage big data. We're way behind in the healthcare industry about using the electronic medical record to take care of patients, but it's going to exponentially increase in the way that we're able to take care of patients in the future. I believe that genomics, the sequencing part that Baylor was so good at, now is a commodity. As I described, 10 years, $10 billion, now, probably a 4-hour test for $50. So that part's a commodity. Sequencing can be done readily now. The real part is understanding that data, being able to analyze it and know what it means to each individual patient. So you have to have large amounts of patient data from old people, young people, men, women, Hispanics, African Americans, and you have to have a variety of different disease processes in relatively normal people to be able to put all this data to then go after the big data question of how you analyze that data and predict if you have the gene for colon cancer, what is the likelihood that you are going to have colon cancer? Well, it depends, like all biology. It's a combination of your genetics and your environment. What your phenotypic data is, what choices you make, what do you eat, do you exercise, do you drink, what's your stress level, do you get enough sleep? All of those variables have to be incorporated into this data to be able to analyze the genomic data to predict how that's going to affect your personal health. That's going to be a big area. How am I doing on time?
You're doing awesome.
Okay, well, you told me, I thought 20 minutes, and then you said, no, we usually go 45 minutes. I said, okay, I'll keep going. So give me a little one of these when I need it. So the final thing, what you probably all came to hear about, and that you turned blue in the face about, is policy. And there are going to be big changes in policy. We're in the early stages of all these 5 areas. I think we're furthest along, realizing I've only been here now almost 4 months. And getting agreement that the policy experts in the Texas Medical Center will come together either in a co-located, or at least to start with, a virtual Texas Medical Center-wide Health Policy Institute. Why is that important? Well, for all of you who are Texas A&M Aggies, Yeah. I didn't hear that. I heard that for the first time when the governor was here giving his state address. So I think there are only 2 of you heard it. You want to try it again, Texas A&M? A few more. The policy, as I understand it, when the state government needs to deal with a transportation question, there's a transportation institute at Texas A&M, and they go there and scholars sit down and figure out what the best solution for transportation problems are in the state. Texas Medical Center needs to be that resource for health. It needs to have the scholars in the Texas Medical Center, whether they be from Rice University, University of Houston, Baylor College of Medicine, UT Health Sciences System, Methodist Hospital, Memorial Hermann, the mayor's office, Judge Emmett's county court. We need to bring all of those people together to be able to be a resource to Austin and to the community, to be able to define what the issues are around health policy. One of the things that I think, again, that it was actually a question. I never had this in an interview. I've been on a lot of interviews for deans of the School of Medicine or president of the university or whatever it was. I never got this until this job. 6 days before my final interview, they sent me an email saying, here's a case study for you. We expect a presentation. So I'm sympathetic to the students. You guys had a little bit longer than I did. I had 6 days. It was probably the most fun 6 days I've spent in the last 5 years because I really got energized about it. But the case study went very simply as following. You've now become the CEO of the largest medical center in the world, and the mayor calls you down to her office and said, congratulations, you're overseeing the largest medical center in the world, yet Houston is one of the most unhealthy cities in America. What's your plan? So that was fun. So there are a lot of different entities across the city of Houston that are working to try to make Houston one of the more healthier places in the country. And that's a complex issue. But this Health Policy Institute will allow us to bring in all those stakeholders and try to come up with an agreed upon plan that we can all try to interact. And it'll involve many different things. It'll involve obviously knowing your numbers. You need to know what your blood pressure is. You need to know what your cholesterol is. You need to know what your PSA is. You need to get colonoscopy. You need to get mammograms. But it's more than that. It's really an educational problem. Everybody knows what the right things to do are to prevent cardiovascular disease, all the things I just said. You know, you need to exercise, you need to eat the right foods, you need to know your cholesterol and manage it, you need to get enough sleep, manage your stress. So why don't people do that? It's because they're people, right? They make bad choices. And so, you know, the example I sometimes use is, you know, when I was a kid in Mississippi, I can remember vividly one hot Saturday afternoon being out in my hot rod, actually taking the seat belts out of my car. Not a very wise thing to do. Nowadays, my kids wouldn't think about operating a car without a seat belt. Moreover, they wouldn't think about drinking and driving. I have to say I probably, we can edit this part out, I probably drove down to Hattiesburg and had a few drinks without my seat belt. My kids wouldn't think about that today. They have designated drivers, they call taxis. So I think it's possible to change the culture, but it may take several generations. They wouldn't smoke, although in Texas, people, you know, kids are smoking. We need to change that culture. And so using the resources of the Texas Medical Center, I think it's our responsibility to the community to be a leader, to organize all the various agencies, all the people who are trying to make Houston a better place around health. It obviously is going to involve clean drinking water, access to health care, may get us in trouble with the energy sector. Got to have better clean air because it's linked to respiratory problems, and a recent study showed it, that if you have more particles in the air and bad air quality, you have more heart attacks. So this is going to be a comprehensive long-term thing, and it may be generational, but we need to start. We can't improve the health of Houston unless we start somewhere. And so this institute, my hope is that it will be sort of a catalyst or a starting point for that. The other thing is, the obvious thing that I'll come to sort of my closing comments, is around the policy of what is the Texas Medical Center going to do to respond to the changes in healthcare. There are issues that are going on now in Austin being debated very vigorously. I'm convinced that Governor Perry is going to be the lone governor standing that says no to Medicaid expansion. He may change his mind at the 11th hour and 59th minute, but I don't know. I'm not sure. And there's debate on both sides of the issue. Regardless of what's decided about Medicaid expansion, we've got to have a plan to deal with that in the Texas Medical Center and how we're going to respond to it. The other issue is the Accountable Care Act. It is the law. It's been upheld by the Supreme Court. It's not in its final version. There'll be, it's an organic document that'll be changed and amended over the years. But clearly, the delivery of health is a bad value that we have in this country right now. We've spent more than any country, developed country in the world, yet we have mediocre results. It's a bad return on our investment. If you look at any objective parameter in terms of longevity, quality of life, infant mortality, all the things that are usual, well-documented benchmarks. We're not getting a good investment, and it's not sustainable. Our national debt is now $16 trillion. That's sort of our gross domestic product, and we continue to tax at about $2.2 trillion a year, but spend at about $3.6 trillion a year. Nobody could run their household that way. And so this is not sustainable. So there are going to be changes. There was a pizza commercial years ago, a guy, I've forgotten the name of the pizza company, but he was so excited he could get 3 pizzas for $15. And he could mix and match them. They didn't all have to do the same. He could get any kind of pizza. The doorbell rings, the guy delivers a pizza, and he's so happy he's got 3 pizzas, and he turns around and his wife's there, and she said, "Why do you always get pepperoni pizza, all 3 the same?" And he looks embarrassed and he said, "Because I fear change." And everybody fears change. It's not something we're all comfortable with. Certainly as a heart surgeon, when I figured out the way that I could, being an artist, that I knew how to do an operation, I didn't want to hear about any new techniques and evolve in that. Now, obviously, I was coming up with some of those, so I didn't fit that exactly. But change is coming. Change is coming, and I think it'll be change for the good, but it'll be painful. And the way that hospitals work, you guys design them and build them and stock them and supply them. The way it works is, I think you guys have probably got this figured out, it's the fee-for-service model. So the way that's rewarded is doing more volume and more intensity. That means that every hospital would love to have the largest transplant program in the world because that pays you more money. And the more times you do it, the more money you get paid. Regardless of whether you're transplanting 83-year-olds that are on dialysis and oxygen and barely can walk around, you still get paid. That system's going to change. The system is going to be rewarded on, if you don't remember anything I say tonight, remember this ratio for the engineers. It's going to be a ratio of delivering the highest quality care at the lowest cost. True patient value. Patients are going to have choice in this. There's going to be transparency. For heart surgeons, certainly in California, Pennsylvania, and New York, you could go and look in the newspaper and you could figure out exactly what my mortality rate was. And you could decide, do I want to go to a guy who has a 10% operative mortality or one that has a 1% operative mortality? All risk adjusted. That's coming for every specialty, every hospital. There was a conference over at Methodist today that there were leading health policy individuals from all over the country, and particularly from CMS and the government. And this is going to change. It's going to change the way that healthcare is delivered. So all of our hospitals have got to figure that out. They've got to slowly move from that fee-for-service model into one that's a value-added proposition for the patient. Highest quality at lowest cost. It turns out that if you deliver high quality, it's actually less expensive. Because think about it, if you're not a very good surgeon, I took a long time, I spent more money, I used, put a valve in, it was the wrong valve, put it out, they cost about $10,000 each, then that quality, bad quality and high cost is exactly where we don't want to be. We want to be at the highest quality at the lowest cost. That's going to require everybody to start thinking as a team. Getting back to this collaborative approach, delivery of healthcare is going to be a team sport. Always has been, but it's always been the doctor and everybody else. Now, doctor's just going to be, he's going to be the quarterback of the team, but the left tackle, I should have asked you, what's the second highest paid player in the NFL? First highest paid is the quarterback, left tackle. Blindside, you saw that, Ole Miss. Texas A&M turned the ball over 6 times, playing at Oxford against Ole Miss, and still won the game. Yeah. So it's really going to be a mindset and a change. You guys are going to be very important in this change because you're going to have to design hospitals that are going to be more efficient, that are going to be more intuitive. It's going to be chock full of technology that will allow you, the principles of the Toyota Lean principle, the Six Sigma principles from GE that have been developed to try to reduce variability. Do it the same way every time. Look at if you've got someone who's checking you in at a desk and they have to print paperwork, but they have to walk all the way over there to get the paperwork and bring it back over to you. That stuff has to be engineered out of the system. In the operating room, it's going to have to be highly specialized new technology. There are going to be imaging equipment. There are going to be new hybrid operating rooms. There's going to be a lot of image-guided therapy, and that doesn't exist today. It's starting to emerge, but that's going to be important. So when I was asked, what does the future look like and are we going to be building? I can't tell you today exactly what we're going to be building in the Texas Medical Center, but you know, if you read the papers, St. Luke's is for sale. It's going to change the face of this medical center, regardless of who purchases St. Luke's. Texas Heart Institute is part of St. Luke's. There's Memorial Hermann, there's Methodist. I believe there's going to be consolidation across the United States in healthcare because you have to have a big system to really make the Affordable Care Act work. Because you have to have care that is focused on the entire delivery along the spectrum of disease and really focuses on prevention and try to keep people out of acute care hospitals and move them out more into outpatient facilities. So I think you guys are going to be designing and building a lot of outpatient surgery centers. It's already happening. There's going to be a lot of push of moving care out into the community. 80% of all of our healthcare budget is spent on chronic diseases, whether it be diabetes, heart failure, obesity is a big contributor to this. We've got to figure out how to take care of those people that have these chronic diseases and hopefully use genetic data to help prevent it. I'm not sure that, that we'll get into a whole new area one day, probably not when any of us are around, with how do you modify behavior and make people make the right choices. Again, I said earlier it's going to be an educational process, but I am fairly, you see the Zayed Research Building going up. I believe that once these institutions figure out exactly how the Affordable Care Act or the Accountable Care Act is going to work, then there will be more consolidation, more changing of the paradigm from the fee for service to this more focused on quality. And I believe there will be building. There's going to be consolidation. We're going to have to build new facilities that are more technologically advanced because I think leveraging that technology will make it safer for patients and deliver higher quality and actually will lower the cost. So I think I'm going to stop there. And I love it. I hope I left enough time because I really prefer to not talk as much and just answer questions. So thank you for your attention. I hope it was helpful.